Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the 3DO Experience, the 3DO retrospective podcast where we talk about all things 3DO, the 3DO company, the console, and everything in between. I am Bill, and this is Threk. How you doing, Threk?
Oh, I'm doing dandy, Bill. How are you?
I'm doing okay. It's the middle of winter. It snowed. They threw salt everywhere, and it's disgusting out, like usual up in New England.
It
Um,
was like mid 60s here the other day. Like
I wish it
yesterday was
was
like
that here.
65, 67, and then today it dropped to like 35. And I'm
Yeah,
like, everybody's going to be starting to get sick now because the weather's just going to be going up and down. I hate it.
that's just New England in a nutshell. We
Yeah.
actually have a guest for this episode. We got Jake from Press B to Cancel. How's it going, Jake?
I'm doing great, and I feel right at home. I'm in Ontario, and it's I don't know what it is in freedom units, but it's like -5 up here. So I'm also used to the snow. I had to shovel yesterday, but I'm doing great. Thanks for having me on this week.
Yeah, no worries, man. Um, yeah, it's been a bit of a week. Nothing too crazy. A lot of
There's been some stuff, but nothing.
yeah.
But before we get into the news, have we asked Jake about his 3DO experience? Because we've been doing that with all of our guests.
Did we during the Halloween special where we didn't talk about Halloween?
That episode was kind of a blur. I'm not going to lie.
Well,
So-
Jake, the floor is yours. So
Sure.
we'll ask you,
I'll
like,
tell you
do
what.
you have any experience with the 3DO?
No, in fact, the first experience in years is actually starting to listen to you guys' show. I remember seeing the magazine ads as a kid. I remember really wanting one, though. I remember seeing other systems like N64 and PlayStation, but something about the 3DO. I always wanted the 3DO. I think it's probably because the ads I saw were for a Star Trek Next Generation game, which I don't even think came out for the system.
I don't believe.
I
so.
don't think so. Yeah. What TNG game was that? Was that the one that came out on SNES and Genesis?
No, it looked like a brand new thing. It was like all 3D models. I don't know. I remember like thinking,
I have to
like,
look.
that's,
I'm gonna have to look
I'm a
into
big
that.
Trekkie. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
I want
Hey,
this.
I love Trek too, man.
Yeah, but no, but I missed out. I mean, in fact, I haven't even really spun up emulators until I know we were talking about another episode as well that we would do in the future. And I'm like, let me look at some of these games and check them out. And I'm surprised they're not all bad. This is not the CDI, right? Like there's actually gems on this system.
Oh,
It's
yeah.
interesting to hear.
Oh
That's-
yeah.
That's been the whole awesome journey with this podcast. Is like we've been discovering I still say we discovered Icebreaker as one of the coolest little games that nobody knows about. Escape from Monster Manor. There are some gems on this system that nobody even remembers, but they're finally starting to get into the public zeitgeist.
Yeah. Even
How
stuff like say PO'd, which got that remaster not that long ago. So, and I'm sure a lot of people went, "Oh yeah, that was on 3DO," or the Killing Time remaster that I think is out. Yeah, I think it is.
Yeah. I have it downloaded.
So-
I haven't messed with it yet though.
Yeah, I have it too. So, and yeah, that Star Trek game I checked. It's called Star Trek: The Next Generation: A World for All Seasons. It was being done by Spectrum Holobyte.
That's a totally unique game. Then that's different from the SNES game. Yeah.
Yeah. And so it was going to be like a choose your own adventure. People were comparing it to Wing Commander. So, man, I would have loved a fucked up 3D version of Worf that you can just mess around with, because this is TNG, so you can just beat the shit out of him.
It'd be great if you just tell him no. That's all I'd want. It's just tell Worf no button. That's all I want.
I need a shut up Wesley button.
You had a question before, Jake? Or?
Sorry, what was your question?
Yeah. Do you guys know how many units sold for the system? Because
It
there's
was,
different manufacturers of this too, right?
So it's kind of like PlayStation 2 numbers where they say it's a thing, but we don't exactly know if it's true.
It sold 170 million units. This is the best selling console of all time.
So it's worldwide, it's estimated at least over 2 million, which is higher than a lot of people expect.
Yeah,
That is more than expected. Yeah.
Yeah, it sold better than more well-known failed consoles like the Jaguar versions.
The Jaguar
or the CDI.
The Jaguar's
Okay.
fun because it's actually shocking how poor that thing sold. Me and Alex on GNC, we had done a episode on failed consoles, and one of my favorite, because she loves the Jaguar for some reason, but she's I'm not sure if it's a meme or if it's it's her being serious sometimes.
Like a lot of things on the internet, it starts ironic and then becomes unironic.
Yeah. But there was a point where we were talking about the 32X and I'd mentioned how it was kind of a failure. And she's like, yeah, because the Jaguar was superior. I'm like, Alex, the 32X sold more than the Jaguar. And she was like, oh. Yeah.
Yeah, the Jaguar. I'm a big fan of the controller. I love the controller. I
Hmm.
have one on the shelf behind me. I think it's a great controller. Underrated, honestly, but it's like
It's the first time
nice
I've ever
hefty
heard
size.
that.
I don't
Really?
hate it.
Yeah,
Oh,
most
okay.
people I know hate it.
Alex loves it, but
I've
Alex loves
I've
everything about that system.
but I've never held one in my like I've never played official hardware for the Jaguar ever.
Yeah.
Like back when I was starting to collect like 15 years ago, they had Jaguars for like $60, and I regret not buying one then because now
Yeah.
they're way too expensive, and I'm just like I'm not going to spend the kind of money that Jaguars go for these days. So I missed the boat. Unless somebody makes some weird like Jaguar like controller for like PCs, I'll have to buy that because I'd be curious to what it is. But
It's a weirdly comfortable controller. Like it's really
Yeah.
great if you have big hands.
it's the Duke.
The keypad is
Yes,
dumb. Like
very
I'll
much like the
never,
Duke.
I'll never
Yeah.
support the keypad because that was dumb. But the
Okay.
actual controller part itself, like the buttons are good. The D-pad's fine. The problem with the keypad is if you don't have the overlays, you spend every game just pressing the buttons, seeing what they do.
Well, then that's why
always
you
print
get
them
like
out, right?
that's why you always get the fancy one that has the 3 extra buttons and the shoulder buttons, which I think are just to replace some of the keypad keys.
I've been looking for one of those because it is like one of the most unnecessary controllers ever, and I really kind of want it.
Yeah. Like for me, I can't justify the cost of retro game collecting and hardware collecting. It's just too much for me. Plus, I don't have space for it. But the controllers, I kind of make an exception for the controllers, so I always try and go for those. And like I had to have the Jaguar one. It's another system I always wanted to try as a kid, but never could. But the controller it feels good in the hands. It is comfortable. I like the keypad. I mean, I have no use for one on a PC, but it's decent. It reminds me of the ColecoVision, which when I was a very young kid, my parents had a ColecoVision, so I have that nostalgia for it. But it's underrated
will say-
controller.
Great console from that era.
Yeah.
And the Coleco was basically just a Sega Mark III.
Yeah, basically.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah.
Yeah, the Jaguar's a fun one though. It's like the 3DO. It's got some gems on it that a lot of people don't realize, but at the same time, it's not as because it's so well known. It's not as interesting as the 3DO is.
Well, one of these days we'll do our comprehensive Jaguar podcast and we'll explain everything. Because we'll eventually run out of shit to talk about on this show.
Yeah. How many 3DO games are there?
Officially,
Quite a few.
there is 200 and I just had it actually marked.
Really?
251 official releases.
Yeah.
Shit.
I don't know if we're going to cover every single one of them, but we'll do just
No,
about.
because there's a
as
lot
many.
of. I mean, we've kind of mashed a couple together, like
Yeah.
because I mean, like Doom was literally just story time because the story is more interesting than the game itself. There's also weird software releases like that. Like
that like Dennis Miller. That's news to me. That we have to do an episode on that sometime. It's like that needs to be discussed. It's Dennis Miller. He was on SNL, and it was his era when he was hosting Weekend Update, and it's just like a bunch of, and it's a bunch of just clips of that compiled into like a 3DO disc.
Also, according to,
and I'm like, if I would prefer this if it was Norm Macdonald.
Amusingly, also according to this list, none of the Vivid Interactive games are considered part of the official commercially released library.
Bootleg software, let's go.
Come on, man.
They list them in.
Come on.
They
were covered on this show. It counts.
They list them in non-software related, like non-game related software, which is like okay. I mean, I guess those weren't really games, but
it's not.
You kind of make your own
more hardware for Vivid.
Oh,
right?
nice.
That's
yeah.
the joke, right?
You kind of make your own fun with those games as best as you can.
And then, of course, there's also a large number of homebrews, which we'll be getting into later with this episode.
Yep.
And a few unreleased titles, particularly Icebreaker 2, which I'd love to experience if there is a version of that out there.
Yeah. We'll cover the M2 in depth because I'd really like to talk about the M2.
Oh yeah, the 3DO successor that never was, although it did technically come out as an arcade board. So there is that.
Oh, really?
Mm-hmm.
There was a few games.
The
M2 arcade board. So there was a few games. It was a really weird thing. Let me see here.
I'm trying to think of I just can't imagine 3DO hardware being used for an arcade game. That seems wild to me.
Yeah, so they sold the M2 off when they realized it wasn't going to be a thing. And there was a few arcade games, particularly one called Battle Trist, Evil Knight, Total Vice, and Toe Polystars. Um,
Interesting. I wonder if
apparently,
those are
from what
names.
These are great names.
apparently
Yeah.
from what I read about the hardware, it ran off of CDs. And they were extremely prone to failure because running a disk drive 24/7 is not a good idea.
You don't say
What
they
a
fail
fucking
often.
thought!
Yeah. Wow. Well, that's like Laserdiscs, right? With what's that? Dragon's Lair, right? Used to be on
Yeah.
Laserdiscs back in the day, and it's absolutely notorious for failing.
Yeah.
I can't imagine wanting to repeat that with discs with the 3DO hardware in an arcade machine. That's wild.
Yeah, like most things 3DO, it was an interesting idea that was poorly executed.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, but yeah, other than that, gaming news wise, not a ton has happened recently. The Sims Legacy collections came out.
Yeah. So this got leaked like a couple days prior because EA was doing like we're gonna do 25th anniversary celebration for The Sims, and then like immediately I think it was like the fan site or whatever was like, oh yeah, they're doing 1 and 2. It's coming out on this date. They had a whole timer thing set up for it, and yeah, it's Sims 1 and 2 Legacy editions, and they're the base games with all the DLC. 1 is 20, 2 is 30, I think.
And you can get both for 40, which is actually a really good deal.
Yeah. So, and yeah, it's cool. I think people seem mostly happy with it. They are buggy. Shocker. They have issues.
One not so bad. 2 crashes a lot.
Yeah. Well, recently EA said that that they're going to try to address all these in a patch, mainly for Sims 2. And people have had some issues with Sims 1, but you know, I can only imagine porting, like just taking the old games and just making them work on modern systems they're gonna run into issues, obviously.
Yeah.
And it's EA. They don't have time. They don't have fucking time to get these right. They're EA. They're a small indie company, you know? They got to rush out a shitty football game every year.
Do this. Yeah.
Yeah, and they got to rush out a shitty football game every year. Which,
I
funnily enough,
was gonna ask,
funnily enough,
go ahead.
No, funnily enough, speaking of all this, I actually watched that Madden documentary they did. I watched it because for some reason I just remembered it, and I watched it. Half of it's pretty good, where they talk about like the history and the development of the series. But then when they start talking about the competition and when they acquired the exclusive NFL rights and kind of how Madden like addressing the modern criticism, that stuff got really bad. You know, where they were talking about the competition, they're like, yeah, these other games are doing well, but Madden was like the king, man, because it was selling better and all of these things. Like
2K5, sorry.
Yeah, 2K. Yeah.
They literally tried to imply that NFL 2K5, because it came out at $20, the NFL got pissed and basically gave the exclusive rights to EA. They tried to imply that in the documentary, and that is not fucking true at all.
No.
Though I know when Sega did the $20 for NFL 2K5, they did not tell the NFL, and they were a little pissed about it. And I think EA used that as leverage to do it, but it wasn't like the NFL gave it to them, you know. But yeah. It's a whole thing. It's only 4 episodes. Like, again, some of it's really good, but I hate how they address the modern criticism as it's just like, oh, we're just constantly getting death threats all the time, and it's not like legit criticism. Like, if you know the YouTube channel Soft Drink TV, I believe that's who they are. They have videos upon videos about why Madden is not as good as it used to be, with detailed explanations, and it's not them like being shitty about it, you know. So, but anyways, EA Trip Hawkins. Funnily enough, the 3DO gets mentioned in that documentary.
Hell yeah,
because Trip is there. He's a big part of it. The funniest part is they asked him about 3DO, and he said, "I don't really want to talk about that."
He's
we need you on the show, Trip. Damn, come on, talk about it.
He's in his dislike arc. He used to love talking about it. Damn.
We'll get him for the show one day. God damn it.
Sorry, you were saying, Jake?
Sorry, I had to go on that tangent. I'm good.
No, that's cool. Sims 1, I think this is the first time you've been able to play Sims 1 officially in a long time.
On modern platforms,
with the Sims games is always the trying to manage all the DLC together and installing everything was a pain. So I debated picking this one out because I played Sims 1 and 2. I like those games. So it'd be interesting to do that. Although I don't know if I want to give EA any more money right now, but that's an interesting compilation.
I grew up on The Sims 1. It was one of the few PC games we had that actually worked on our shitty little like gateway computer. And that's the thing. I don't normally like those types of games, but I found myself playing Sims 1 quite a lot. And I never had the expansions. It was just the base game. So when this goes on sale, like $20, I'll wait till it's like 10 or $8 and then I will buy it.
Yeah.
So I will say, I'm not going to say a ton because me and Alex are actually covering the game for this week's episode of GNC. But I will say the way that they handled it, like all the DLC together in the download, it's like seamless. Like once you boot it up, it's just like it's basically as if you're playing the complete version with everything already installed.
That's
good.
the way it should be. That's awesome. Yeah.
Once they address the crashing issue, it'll probably be a lot better because gameplay wise, it played fine. I mean, the game always kind of ran like shit back in the day because it was a glitchy game to begin with.
Especially with larger houses, it was always a nightmare.
Oh yeah.
And it's part of the appeal, weirdly enough, because Sims, like if you guys, I don't know if you've seen that trailer they made for this like Legacy Edition re-release. They like went above and beyond for that trailer, and it is it's chaotic awesomeness. I loved it.
Well, a lot of the fun of Sims 2 is just once you get bored of actually simulating, like you just go straight up like crazy and start doing the weirdest shit because you can.
Yeah, and the trailer played into that, which I thought was great.
Are they making a Sims 5? Is that what this is leading up to?
They said they weren't,
so,
but I think they might be.
Well, they had said they had something in development. I forget what it was, like Project something, and it was meant to be like a replacement for Sims 4 or something like that. Right. But my guess is it probably just will be Sims 5 because people have been begging for it for it's been 10 years since Sims 4.
Sims 4 is? Yeah, because Sims 4.
Yeah, 2014.
But they keep adding stuff to Sims 4 still, right? There's still expansions for that all the time.
Yeah, Sims 4.
Sims it's free to play now.
It's free to play, but if you want to play it the fun way, you have to spend like thousands of dollars in DLC. So it's
thank you.
Leave it. I thought of fun unlock DLC.
I mean, I've thought about downloading the base game just to mess around with it since it's free to play, but I just haven't gotten around to it.
The base game, it's better than it was when it first came out, but it is very
naturally. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a thing though. I'm amazed it happened because this is the first time you can play all 4 Sims games on Steam, which is kind of crazy.
But that's great.
I believe 3 is on there as well.
3 is there, yes.
Okay,
that's great.
So yeah, it's great. It's nice to see these companies are starting to, if slowly, they're starting to look into their back catalog and put more older things out.
Considering how crazy Sims fans are, I guarantee you they made millions when those both dropped.
Oh, guaranteed.
For sure.
Absolutely. Me and Alex were both day one, spent the $40 because we can't control ourselves.
Yeah. Just listen to those tunes again.
Oh, the soundtracks are amazing.
Sims 1 soundtracks burned into my brain. So good.
And then 2 has the Devo guy, which is great.
Mark Mothersbaugh. Love that guy. But speaking of old releases, this is kind of breaking news because Capcom was doing their little showcase thing with like Monster Hunter Wilds, and they were talking about the new Onimusha game, which the way they phrased it, it's not going to be a Souls-like, because that's what I was kind of afraid of. I'm like, it doesn't need to be that. Leave it alone. But they announced in it that they are remastering Onimusha 2.
Nice.
And that's coming out this year. Cool. Hopefully it's better than the first game, because I do not like the first game. People get mad at me, but I don't like it. I don't like it.
Well, the first game is very clearly a Resident Evil. We decided not to make Resident Evil and made something else game.
Yeah, and I hate that style of control for any other game. I just can't stand it.
2 is much better. 2 and 3 definitely.
Yeah.
A lot.
Yeah, people are hoping they'll do 3.
Yeah. One plays exactly like Resident Evil, and you're like, it's kind of like Devil May Cry, where you're like, oh yeah, this was definitely a Resident Evil. This was one of the many Resident Evil 4s before they.
Yeah, basically. So yeah, it's cool to see Onimusha 2 coming back. Maybe they'll do 3 as well, because I think 3 is like the fan favorite. So, and that has what's the French guy? What's his name? Jean-Luc or something?
Something like that. It's been forever.
Yeah, whatever. Let's see, what else is there? The ESA was talking about like the tariff situation. We won't get too deep into it, but I mean, this is changing all the time. So, we'll see. Because the issue I think with the tariffs is if the Switch, say the Switch 2 is coming out this year, right? And the manufacturing normally takes place in China. And if the tariffs are going to hit China, then does that mean the Switch is going to be more expensive? probably.
Yeah.
Wait
From
But-
what I
to see
understand,
on
because
that.
I'm in Canada, so that was one of the things that got brought up in the news up here is that yes, it would be more expensive. I mean, stuff is already more expensive because of our weak dollar compared to the U.S., so I was not looking
Yeah.
forward to that. Our government over the holidays had a tax break on a number of different things to kind of stimulate the economy, and video games was one of them. So we go from there being a discount to suddenly there's tariffs, and like, come on, guys, like, cut me a break.
Yeah.
Not that I'm in the market for any new hardware anytime soon, but it does look like that's been delayed for now, so we'll have to see. But I think you're going to see companies possibly try to move manufacturing or assembly of systems to other countries.
Yeah.
Now. You probably see stuff in Vietnam within the next 10 years because of this decision.
Exactly. So we'll see what happens with it. I think Nintendo and other companies would do that because I'm sure they see like if the Switch 2 because of tariffs has to be like $450 or $500 American, like a lot of people are just not going to bother, especially when systems are not coming down in price like they used to. Like the PS5 and the Series X are still $500 a pop, and it's been like 5 years and they haven't gone down in price at all.
Yeah.
So
Well, it's because Sony and Microsoft can't afford to subsidize the cost of consoles anymore, not like they used
Yep.
to, right? So
Yep.
I'm actually kind of curious what the Switch 2 will end up being priced at. I don't think Nintendo's going to undercut it either. So I'm expecting $425, I think, for the Switch 2.
yeah,
I'm cheaper. but we'll
I'm
see.
thinking 400 flat because Nintendo has done a really good job with keeping their hardware costs low to where they're not doing subsidies or taking huge hits on their consoles. Like the Switch 1, I don't think they ever took a hit on that thing because it was like 24. It was old hardware when it came out.
Well, I mean, the
So-
most famous was when they released the Wii at a profit because it was just like it was like two
Yeah.
game cubes taped together, basically.
Yeah. So my guess is that even if they take a little bit of a hit on the Switch 2 at the start, I don't think it'll be that much. And it's like you had the Switch at 300, the Switch OLED was 350. So the Switch
Right.
2 being 400, I think keeps that consistency in the pricing. And I think 400 is the limit that most people would be like, all right, fine. Sounds good.
Right.
It's got Mario Kart. Sure. That's what most people are going to say. Me, I need more Mario Kart. So
It's not going to
Yeah.
come in the game though. I don't think for $400. I don't. See it
no.
happening.
I can see him doing a bundle for like 450 or even like 500 with Mario Kart in there, but
I can't even remember the last time I got a console with a pack-in game. I think it actually was the Wii U with Nintendo Land. Now that I think about it,
I would say when
And
I
that's
got
barely
my
a
series,
game, right? That was like a demo disc.
it was a thing. I played it
Yeah.
once, so
I like Nintendo Land. Nintendo Land was good.
I didn't have anyone to play with, so I got bored really
It-
fast.
It's definitely you need like another person to like experience
sure.
Nintendo Land. Nintendo Land's fun though, but yeah, when I got my Series X, it was the Forza Horizon 5 bundle, so I got Horizon 5 just like as a free download, which is cool.
Yeah.
My PS5 came with hopes and dreams.
that
Didn't it
have
come
yet to
with,
be fulfilled.
Astrobot? Wasn't that?
Well,
Astrobot
it
or
came
was-
with that little Astrobot like demo thing, like
Oh,
pre-downloaded.
that's
in.
right. It was a demo. It wasn't a full game either.
Yep. And it's what, like 2 hours?
Yeah, it's a proof of concept that people were like, if they made a full game of this, I bet it would be amazing. And then sure enough,
And they did. Yeah, good for them. But speaking of Forza Horizon 5, big news. I guess everything's apparently everything's dead. We're all fucked. It's Forza Horizon 5's coming to the PS5. Like, I mean, I'm the Xbox guy here, but like, it's not that. It's really not that shocking. Like Xbox has been saying for what, like almost 10 years now, that they're like,
Yeah.
hey, if you play our games, we really don't care where you play them. As long as you play our fucking games, we don't care. So it's really not that shocking,
Yeah.
I just think
was
it's-
the Xbox. Sorry, go ahead.
I was just gonna say it's gonna be a weird universe. We have Gran Turismo and Forza on the same console. But
At least the Horizon series is different enough
true.
to where it's like it's a different experience than the Gran Turismo. Like Motorsport is that like the direct competitor. I think would be a little bit more weird.
True.
But Horizon at least is kind of different, and Horizon 5 is a great game.
Oh, I'm
like
looking
this
forward to
news,
it.
Yeah.
like this news made me just go re-download it, and I've like been playing it a little bit, and I'm like, yeah, this game's fucking great. Hardcore Forza
Basically,
fans don't like it, but I do.
all this news really meant. All this news basically meant to me was it's like, I can prolong buying a Series X now, I guess, a little bit longer.
Yeah, I mean that's the whole thing where it's like at the present time, this doesn't really hurt Microsoft or anything like that. But
No.
people who have legitimate concerns about the hardware in the future, in terms of like if they're in the ecosystem, it's like what's going to happen to like all my old games and everything. Like that's totally understandable. I get that. I can get behind that. But that's really the only thing that's really worrisome, you know? But if this rumored next Xbox is going to be like a weird console PC hybrid where it's like, oh, I have all my Xbox games and I can link my Steam account to it and then play everything on there, then I'd be fine. I think the hardware would generally be fine because then it's like, oh, it's kind of like a weird Steam machine Xbox hybrid. And I think people would like that, you know? But can they make that work? I don't know.
The dream scenario, honestly, for me is that Microsoft gets their Game Pass app on everything, right? Like Nintendo Switch, let Microsoft put a Game Pass on the Switch and give them a cut of all the monthly fees if you use it on Switch. Like,
I think they talked about it.
And I know that people, that maybe Sony and Nintendo probably hesitant to do that, but at the same time for Microsoft, that's the end goal, right? Xbox Game Pass on TVs, on set-top boxes, and they've talked about that. Like you're right, they've been talking about this for years. So I don't know why hardcore fans are kind of shocked that Master Chief will end up being on PlayStation. It's not a big deal. It really isn't.
It's literally that like schoolyard console war thing that they just want to push, even though console wars have not mattered. Realistically, they haven't mattered since the Genesis and Super Nintendo. Because let's face it,
I don't know about that.
PlayStation curb stomped everyone, and then PlayStation 2 also curb stomped everybody.
Like
the winners. Yeah.
Like the last interesting console war was PS3 360,
which is still crazy
because those were interesting, different enough consoles that had their own kind of vibe to them. That war, I was in that war.
Oh yeah, I was too.
And it was kind of fun looking back, the little like pot shot things. But at the end of the day, it doesn't mean anything. But it was fun. Once we hit like the PS4, Xbox One, it wasn't fun anymore.
Well, the thing about the PS3 360 war that I always find hilarious is like they were like killing each other, and then Nintendo's just cruising in the background, laughing and waving, like, "See ya."
They're waggling the number one.
Because you forget
because they never count. They never count unless they're losing.
Well, you got to remember too, the Wii not only destroyed them that generation, but then they had the DS in the background, which is the second best-selling console of all time. So it's like Nintendo killed it during Gen 7, but no one ever talks about that.
Yeah, well, it's just weird seeing all this. No, go ahead, Jake.
Even today, like it's either you either have a Xbox or PlayStation and a Switch. Like Nintendo's always been the second console for like over 10 years now. Even now for myself, haven't owned a PlayStation or Xbox since the 360, but I've always had a Nintendo console in the house and a gaming PC, right? So for me, it's as long as it comes to PC, I'm kind of happy, but I'll still buy a Switch or I'll still buy whatever Nintendo brings out, usually mostly because I have kids. But it's interesting that consoles aren't really a factor in my life anymore. I'm much more focused on the games and ideally playing them on PC.
Like, I think the industry is going towards being more like PC centric. That like everything is like with Microsoft putting everything on PC, Sony is like slowly rolling everything out on PC. Like I won't be shocked if in a couple years they're just dating everything on PC as well. And if if Xbox keeps doing hardware and it has Steam account functionality, then it's like, oh, I can buy PlayStation games through Steam and play it on an Xbox.
Well, that's why
like that idea isn't.
Either of you guys own a Steam Deck?
I do not.
I do not currently, just because I probably wouldn't use it.
I got one.
I would.
Started last year. I should have gotten one sooner because that thing is amazing. I almost don't consider it a console, but it kind of effectively replaces consoles for me. And I know there's a rumor that they're working on a standalone console that runs Steam OS, but that to me would be the smartest business move of Microsoft. I don't think they would ever do it, but to build an Xbox that just has Steam OS on it and work with them, because what Valve made in that hardware space, like Valve is, whenever they dedicate the resources to something, they always do it stellar. They always do it well. It's just a question of whether they iterate on it and do a second one, or they just kind of move on to something else, right? But the Steam Deck is an awesome device, and that's what Microsoft should be doing. Because like the games they release on the Xbox are all on PC anyway. You might as well just make a home PC. Because Steam OS, if you want to tinker with it like a PC, you certainly can. I do. But you can give that to a kid and they can enjoy it and not worry about a thing. Like it's a very streamlined experience that is separate from a PC. It's a really great device.
Yeah. And I wouldn't be surprised if something like that happens in the future. you know. And then if, you know, Microsoft and Sony are putting all their stuff out on PC anyways, then it's like, yeah, then the whole exclusive argument doesn't matter anymore. And you just play the game, say, like, if you've been a PlayStation owner forever and you're in that ecosystem, or if you're in the Xbox ecosystem, you can stay there and be fine, but then you'll have access to like everything else, you know. Like Nintendo, I think, is the one that would take harder to budge.
They're going to be stubborn till the very end, like they always are.
I genuinely think they will officially release a game on PC in my lifetime. When, I don't know. I could be like 90, and then they do it, and then I'd be like, oh, that's what finally kills me, because I can't believe they did it.
and it's gonna be fucking Duck Hunt or some stupid shit like that.
Yeah, like if they shadow drop, say, like Breath of the Wild on Steam, that would sell like 10 million immediately.
They're gonna make a Nintendo.
People would flip the shit. They would flip out, and it would be a huge boost to sales for Nintendo, more than they probably would expect. But they don't want to pay that like 30% to Valve.
Yep.
So that's why they won't do it, even though they probably would get more money.
Like, never say never, because look at Nintendo did for a time was releasing stuff on mobile, right? Remember Super Mario Brothers Run, right? Or Fire Emblem,
Pokemon
Go, and that's because
Go.
And that's because the Wii U was dying and the 3DS was treading water. And I think the mobile thing was just like a backdoor in case the Switch didn't work out.
See, I miss the Pokemon Go era though, because that was like the most. That was some of the most insane shit from gamers I've ever seen.
Like post-COVID, thinking about Pokemon Go is insane.
Well, did I ever told you the story about my coworker playing Pokemon Go at work when I was working night shift?
No.
So I walk into work. He's got the ceiling fan set to the lowest setting, so it's like moving barely at all. And his phone is taped to the blade, just spinning around slowly. And I'm like, I just look up, I'm like, the fuck are you doing? And he's like, oh, I'm getting eggs. I'm just like, all right, I don't want to
only
be a part
cheating
of this.
yourself.
I'm like, I don't want to be a part of this.
Great.
I literally walked away and was like, I don't want to be part of this.
Can we hit the reset button? Is that possible?
Oh, people don't care about Pokemon Go anymore, so it's fine.
I know people who still play it.
Do they?
Like, kind of religiously, yeah. And it's just like, okay, fine. You do you, bub. Whatever makes you happy. I don't care. Yeah.
Was it they got caught with leaking all, or harvesting all of the personal data, the locations you've been to, your screenshots, the whole 9 yards? Like, it's been the greatest spy app for a decade.
Yeah, and they're like, we could sell it to like a government, but we're not going to do that. Yeah, wasn't that recently they talked about like they could sell it to like a government for information. Everyone got mad and they're like, no, we didn't actually. We just said we could. It's like, that's already not much better. Yeah. It's fucking stupid. You know, speaking of stupid, all this like Xbox shit. And then I guess today they were like, oh, Age of Empires 2 and Age of Mythology are coming to PS5 as well. So, which again, good games.
Cool.
Yeah, they're good games, but it's
headline. It's right? Like I know. It's just, I don't really give a shit. As long as I have my Series X and I can still boot it up and play games on it, I'm fucking fine, dude. Like, I'm okay. And I don't see Microsoft like pulling a Sega and cutting everything and running. Like, they don't need to do that. And I see them like supporting say like their ecosystem like indefinitely. Like, they're in gaming forever. They're never going to leave gaming.
People use the term pulling a Sega way too liberally these days, because nobody truly understands why Sega ended up the way they did. Like, Sega was so bad in the toilet. Like,
yeah, like a lot of these fuckers were not alive when Sega was making consoles. They weren't.
Like people don't.
They just weren't.
When you're at a point in your console history where you have a console that's very well liked, but like they can't even give it away for free. Like that's not good.
Yeah. Well, and also Sega, I mean, we don't have to get too deep into this, but Sega was taking a huge loss on the Dreamcast.
Oh yeah.
Putting it at $199, which was more of like a marketing price, and in the end it totally fucked them because it was costing more to produce them, you know. Where like looking at the financials, if they had just made it $249, that would have helped them a big deal. It wouldn't have gotten them out of the red, but I think it would have allowed the Dreamcast to maybe live another year or two. But
the biggest
never know.
Go on, Jake.
It doesn't help that their games were also pirated almost immediately. Like I
Well,
remember
yeah.
going into a
Goddamn
local Asian mall
GD-ROMs.
and exchanging my N64 for a Dreamcast and a stack of pirated games just in the same
Oh, yeah.
transaction.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. And that's the thing, Dreamcast had great games as well.
It
So
did.
huge. I love the Dreamcast.
It is.
oh yeah. I have a little
one.
collection over here of them. Love them.
It's the one failed console that everyone wishes didn't fail.
Yeah, for sure.
I will say though, like the true death blow to the Dreamcast was when Sony had their massive PS2 like chip shortage, and they weren't going to be able to make the demands for Christmas, and all of the shoppers decided they'd rather just not get anything for Christmas than buy a Dreamcast.
Gamers are a patient bunch.
Oh yeah, like
They're
I read that.
like the timed the timed exclusive thing doesn't work. For
Just
the
wait.
most part, most people will just wait to play it on their platform of choice rather than going out to get it. Like they don't work. They just straight up don't work.
And PS2 launch wasn't even that good. There wasn't
No,
that many great games for PS2 launch.
It was a
The
rough
PS
launch, yeah.
Well, no, everyone was buying the Matrix. That's what sold the PS2. Let's be real here.
Notable PS2 game, The Matrix. Yeah.
Path of Neo?
It was the family DVD player. That's what everyone used it for.
Right. Yeah.
It was actually
We've all
a thing.
watched a movie on it. Watching a movie on a PS2 is awesome.
The first thing I did with mine was watch a DVD. The parental code was 0000 because no one knew how to set it right.
Yeah. I booted up X-Men Legends.
That's
First
a
thing
good
I did
game.
with the PS2. Loved it.
I think I played on the 360. I want to say, or was that a PC thing I played it on? I love it.
It might have been PC. I don't think it ever got ports to 360. Maybe it was Marvel Ultimate Alliance you're thinking of?
Oh, Alliance was 360, yeah. But I did play
Legends. Yeah, because X-Men Legends morphed into Marvel Ultimate Alliance. So.
Right.
Yeah.
Speaking of Nintendo, though, we got to go with our running joke of Nintendo Music app. We got new music.
Hold on. I think I saw it, but I just want to confirm it. Hold on.
It's a good soundtrack.
I should have had this ready. I think it was Super Mario World. Yeah.
Yeah.
It was.
Yeah. A fine soundtrack. I prefer Mario 3.
I mean, I'm a World guy personally.
I'm a 3 guy. I will die on that. I mean, World is a fine game. I do think it's a little overrated.
I do. Well, I mean, to me, the peak of 2D Mario was Land 2, but I mean, I know I'm in the minority there.
It's a good game, though.
I know I love Land.
Very
2.
good game.
It's just.
I don't know if I would say the peak. I don't know about that. There's something weird. There's something weirdly narcissistic about that game.
Oh, Land
3
2?
had Fred Savage's backing, so I mean that's all I need. So give me the game that actually spawned an award-winning movie starring Fred Savage. That
movie is legendarily amazing.
It's so good. I love that movie. I made my kids watch it, and they had the nerve to tell me it was a bad movie. So
California.
Oh, what a fucking movie!
It's so good.
Yeah. So Mario World music, great soundtrack. Even though it's mostly just one melody, just changed for the entire soundtrack, which I actually kind of like in hindsight.
Yeah. Again, I like Mario 3 soundtrack better because it has like that weird reggae vibe to it, and there's quite a bit of interesting variety throughout all the tunes. Like their takes on like the Mario 1 tunes and then brand new tunes that are just part of the Mario lore now. So again, I just think 3 is a better game than World. Like World seems very plain and vanilla to me compared to like how interesting 3 is. It goes so many weird places. But we're not here to talk about that. I get a little. World's not a bad game. I'm not trying to say that. It's just when I want to play a Mario game, it's not the first one I think of.
No, but we are here to talk about Mortal Kombat.
Yeah. So this happened. What was it, last week? I think.
So this has been an ongoing project that I've been following since it was announced. And it kind of got stealth. The beta. I want to preface this now. It's a beta. It's not the finished product. So anyone who plays this and is like, "What the hell is this?" It's a beta. It's not finished yet. They're working on it still.
I mean, if you play it, it's clear that it's a beta.
Yeah. Well, some people are complaining about it, and I'm like, it's a beta. Let's chill.
Yeah. I found a post about it on Retro RGB. I don't know if this is the official post or not.
So I actually tracked down who is the person behind this, it is actually a YouTube channel called 3DO HD.
Yes.
They are the current they're the team that was working on this game, and they have been posting their progress videos for this for quite a while now. And it has been fascinating to watch, like the amount of work that they put into this game just like over the years. Like they also did like a 3DO Tetris version and a bunch of other cool stuff. But the Mortal Kombat 2 port is very interesting because this is a game that famously did not come out for the 3DO.
Wasn't it supposed to?
There's
Was it?
never been an official confirmed like thing about that. It's one of those games that people have always wondered about because famously the 3DO had for the longest time arguably the best port of Street Fighter 2 ever made.
Exactly.
So it seemed like a go-brainer, but a no-brainer, I should say. I don't know what a go-brainer
I was gonna
is.
let that go. I like that.
Um,
No brainer.
But yeah, so this came completely out of nowhere a while back, and the beta was recently released a few days ago, and it's now available to the public. You can play it on an emulator, you can download it into an OED, play it on a real console, or if you're daring, you can try burning it to a CD and hope to God it works. Because you can, the 3DO has no copy protection, but God forbid burning 3DO games is hell. So
Yeah,
don't even bother.
Yeah, because basically the main thing is it reads CDs at such a slow speed that like most modern CD burners you can find, like if you want to burn something the specific speeds, you can't even get it that low. I'm not even kidding.
Yeah.
Like
Okay.
I've looked into like burning 3DO games on like onto CDs and playing them on like, and nowadays it's like every step of the process is a fail point. Like, you know, the CD being the wrong speed, like the brand of CD not being correct, like the burner being weird, like your console could have issues, like the ROM could be corrupted, like literally the entire thing. If you're able to burn them and have them work nowadays, it's like a saint move. Like it's incredible.
This is why the fine folks at Limited Run Games got in so much shit for that CDR controversy.
Yeah, that was the big one with that. So
Is there drive replacements like mods? Like I know there's a mod for, I think it's is it Dreamcast? We can replace the CD drive with a hard drive device or a flash card of some kind.
There are
There is?
3DO OEDs. They're not super available right now, but you can get them for the FC1 and the FC10 currently. So at least two of the versions you can get OEDs. I've been considering doing that for my FC1 because my FC1's disk drive is very slowly going out the door. So it's an option, but it's way later down the line. But I have seen you can play this game on real hardware and it works pretty well.
So yeah, but I assume we all play this on emulator though.
Yes.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
I was going to play on the Mister because I know the Mister was working on a 3DO core. I thought the core was out, but it's not. So I'll have to check it out when that comes out later on. But I did play it on, I think I played on RetroArch is how I played it today.
I booted up good old 4DO because
yes,
the RetroArch 3DO emulator I can't get to work for some reason.
Yeah, that one's okay. It just has a lot of weird issues with it that I don't know if it's like a RetroArch thing or if it's just like that core just doesn't get updated that much. But yeah, like the 4DO emulator is like kind of pitch perfect. I've had like whatever I've thrown at it, it just works. So, but for some reason, whenever I load it up on my computer, I have to run it as an administrator. I can't just open it straight up. I have no idea why. It's just an extra click. But
so before we get into the actual port itself, the homebrew port, which this is an interesting one because we've covered a fan homebrew game in the past, but this is a homebrew port of an existing game, which is a first for the system, I think.
Is it a port like, or is it a recreation? Because like, I didn't know if he took the original code from somewhere and ported it to 3DO, or he made it for this game from scratch.
I think it's a little bit of a mix of both because I know there is elements of the arcade version in here. It's I gotta rewatch his videos on it because he goes deep into all the stuff he's done. I know there is a lot of the base game included, but it is a lot of I believe he did a lot of it, or they, I should say, I have no idea, the people involved, but I believe they did a lot of it from scratch as well.
Right. It's very
Yeah.
faithfully the way. Like it's a very faithful version of the game on 3DO. Like it feels like an actual real 3DO game, right? It's really an awesome piece of work.
It's actually pretty interesting too, because the 3DO, what I thought was interesting. So I played a couple versions of MK2 because MK2 is arguably of the classic series. A lot of people consider MK2 the best in the series.
Yeah,
Um,
they do. I've never completely agreed with that. I mean, I think MK2 is a fantastic game, but I'm more of a Ultimate Mortal Kombat 3 guy. Like I know
Yeah.
base Mortal Kombat 3 is rough, and I totally get why, but like the Ultimate version is a lot better. And then also Mortal Kombat Trilogy is really good.
I love
as well.
Trilogy. Trilogy's usually my way. I play classic.
Yeah,
MK.
yeah. You can't go wrong with either of them. And I have a huge soft spot for the original Mortal Kombat as well. But yeah, two is a great game. You know, and
has the best story because let's face it, story in these games is not much, but
so I can't stand Mortal Kombat 2. This is one of the games I hate the most.
Oh, that's fun.
But the fact that this is on the 3DO and that somebody recreated or reported this is such a technical achievement. It's amazing. And like I love to talk about this kind of thing. The fact that there's somebody making new 3DO games in 2025 is like mind-blowing to me. So I mostly don't like it because it's Mortal Kombat, it's the cheap AI. It's the low kick to win type of thing is what I don't like. Otherwise, I love the characters. I love the lore. I love the music, but it's so cheap in arcades.
I love the look too. Like playing this port made me realize how. So Thrak hated it, but I was a little nice to Way of the Warrior, and then playing this, I'm like, yeah, Way of the Warrior was kind of shit.
Thank you, good fucking god, because you play good fighting games, dude.
I was distracted by Rob Zombie. I'm sorry.
Rob Zombie would fit in this game.
He probably would, honestly.
Yeah. Especially with because it takes place in Outworld, so you have those really cool backgrounds, you know, that like Mortal Kombat 2 is a really interesting evolution from the original, because the original is very like earthy because it's on like Earth Realm, and you have all like, you know, the Chinese specific type of locales, right? But then you go to Mortal Kombat 2 and it's like, oh, there's like acid pits and like dudes on fire in the background and all this other crazy stuff. So it's like visually it's a nice striking change from the original Mortal Kombat, and I do think the gameplay is improved from the original Mortal Kombat. You know, like they both have like that cheap AI, but I think Mortal Kombat 2 is a little bit more forgiving than the original, especially like Goro in the first game is just
he's brutal in the first game.
He's an insane piece of shit.
I mean, Shao Kahn is still cheap as fuck though, and he's still taunts.
Yeah, but there are ways to cheap him to beat him. True. There are specifically in 3. Like you can kind of cheap him out in 3.
I love anytime you fight Shao Kahn, he's just in there like, is that your best? Just taunting you the entire way through.
And if you're playing Sub-Zero like I do, you can just freeze him right then and there and get your free hit. So I was able to find the official post from a 3DO HD about this, where it's the ISO for 3DO Mortal Kombat 2. It's 5.01 and said this is a public beta. And then they said they'll continue to drop fixes over the same link. Said there will be bugs. I'll fix them as I find them. And I noticed a few bugs as I was playing it. It says if you play with a CD, there might be slight audio skips when backgrounds change in the intro and ending. There are no fighter-specific fatalities, which, thank God, I thought I was fucking stupid because I was trying to do fatalities and they just wouldn't work. And I'm like, what is wrong with me? That helps. Shang Tsung can only morph into the opponent.
I noticed that right away. Like I was like, why is he only ever being me?
Yeah, and if you go into like the little game manual that they have like the list for all the different morphs that he can do, which is really nice. Let's see. And then it says soon I'll begin working on the complete version, which will include the fatalities, the babalities, friendships, and Shang Tsung morphing into anyone. This is a work in progress and will continue to improve. Again, goal is not arcade accuracy, but a good port for the 3DO, which never released one, but deserved one. Please log bugs, issues, you know, all that, and thanks a bunch of people. You know, and it said the IP to Mortal Kombat is owned by Mortal Kombat NetherRealm, blah, blah, blah. I don't think Warner Brothers would take this down. I don't think they're that shitty. They are shitty, but I don't think they would do this.
Yeah.
Because it's like, I don't think you can play Mortal Kombat 2 officially on anything, can you?
There's an arcade perfect port, I believe. Actually, I don't
Is
even know if
there?
that's
But
still
is
up.
that available? Because
forget what console that
I
was
have
on.
like the Midway Arcade Origins, which was like the 360 PS3 compilation. It's backwards compatible,
That was
and
the
it's
last one, I think.
I don't think it has Mortal Kombat on it.
No.
So the PS2 Midway collections, I believe, do.
The Arcade Treasures, yeah, specifically number 2 was like the
Yes.
Mortal Kombat compilation, and I loved that one to death. But I don't know if Mortal Kombat 2 is available outside
Not
of
co-
like modern
not
capacities.
Yeah, not conveniently. So one thing I did notice, the thing that fascinates me about this port is its performance, because this game, Mortal Kombat 2, was also ported to Saturn and PlayStation back in the day. And
Yeah.
the 3DO famously has a lot less video RAM and a lot less like just general hardware capabilities than the Saturn and PlayStation. And the Saturn and PlayStation versions of Mortal Kombat 2 are kind of rough. Like, they don't run very well.
That PlayStation one, between every of the intro screens, every screen there's a loading flash between every single one of them. It's like loading, next screen, loading, pick a character, loading. Like I didn't realize how bad it was until I played it today. I thought the Saturn would be rough because I heard Shang Tsung's teleports and all that were kind of glitchy on the Saturn. But the PS1 port is, I think, unplayable. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, which is crazy because the PlayStation is significantly more powerful than the 3DO in almost every
Yeah.
way.
I think that's just an issue with like games when we went from cartridge based to disc based. Is that a lot of these devs were just not ready to handle like how CDs read data differently than cartridges, you know? Like when I talked about that Madden documentary, one of the things they brought up is that Madden 96 famously did not release on PlayStation, despite the PlayStation already being out, and Game Day released that year as well. And they talked about how they were trying to get Madden 96 to run on the PlayStation, and they just couldn't. Like the load times were too bad, and just like the hardware, just like the transition from cartridge to CD for game devs was a bit of a challenge. So that's why they famously skipped it. A prototype of that of Madden 96 PS1 did leak, so you can try it, and all the issues they said that people say are there, like the load times are really bad. And yeah, like Mortal Kombat is definitely another one that just the transition, I think, freaked people out.
So I watched a side-by-side comparison of this port next to the arcade. It's close. Like,
It's really good.
Yeah.
arcade is obviously cleaner, but like if I wasn't looking like spot on, like frame by frame close, I wouldn't notice. Like, this was a very clean version of the game. Like, because one thing about MK2 that I love that most of the ports don't get is the backgrounds are really dynamic. Like, there is a lot of
Yes.
layers, and like particularly there's that one fight where the little like shadowy ghouls are kind of just standing there in the foreground, in the background. They're missing in most ports. Except the 32X version, ironically, that they're in there, which another reason why this port is surprisingly good.
Like, I think that's considered the best like home console port of Mortal Kombat 2's the 32X version.
It was for a long time. A lot of people are arguing this might overtake it when it's finished.
Potentially, yeah, because I noticed that it wasn't running at full speed most of the time. It was capped around 40 frames a second, which was fine. But I noticed that, like, because I've played the arcade version, like you can emulate the arcade version on MAME, and I highly recommend doing it so you can have more of a direct comparison. And it's like that version runs a lot faster and a lot smoother. But I imagine the 3DO version can get there.
Yeah, that was so graphically, like I was impressed the entire way. The character sounds are spot on, like all the animations are amazing. Like, obviously we haven't seen the fatalities yet. I'm assuming those will also look amazing. Like, even like the stage fatalities where like the character gets knocked off and like flies down into the spike pit, like that will look amazing. Like when I
yeah, because this has the pit too, which has that like 3D thing where the character's like falling and then the background, like they're getting closer to the background. You know, I've watched a bunch of behind the scenes stuff on Mortal Kombat over the years because I really like the series, and I just loved hearing like how they did it, which was just like the character sprite is still, but the background is just getting closer, but you know your eyes perceive it differently. You know.
What I like too about this port is there's a mode where you can look at the stages and scroll around the stages, and that's when I realized it has the parallax, which I think that from what I recall, the Genesis and SNES versions obviously don't have that, and the attention to detail on the stages is pretty interesting there. Like he even added some the ability to change the background texture for some of the stages. So if you're in like the pit, for example, there's different backgrounds you can have spawn in the background. So it's not just the same nighttime sky or the battle in the background. So there's some variation to it. Like you said, it's not meant to be arcade perfect. It's just meant to be a great 3DO port, which I think is a great path to follow with something like this, because it's like a love letter to what could have been, I think. And
Yeah.
it's pretty solid.
Yeah.
The one thing I will say though is, and this is only a complaint if you are a hardcore Mortal Kombat 2 fan and you religiously play the arcade version. It's not a perfect port in terms of gameplay, which I noticed right away.
Well, because also like the camera, I think, is a little bit zoomed in
So
compared to say the arcade version, so it feels a little bit more claustrophobic.
I read a bit of a thing behind that from the from 3DO HD. Apparently, it's not actually zoomed in. It's just how it was like scaled when he like basically the resolution changed between 3DO and like arcade. It's just kind of how it came out.
Yeah, it's fine. You get used to it. It's just that if you've played the arcade version and you compare it, that's something you immediately notice. Like you don't have the win counters above the health bars. Like the time is just like right in the middle instead of slightly above. Just little things like that. But it kind of adds to the quirkiness of a console port of an arcade game. Right.
But when you compare it to like the Genesis version, for example, like I played the Genesis Mortal Kombat 2 quite a bit as a kid, and I played a little bit of the SNES one. I think I rented it once. But I always remember those looking pretty good for the time. I never had an issue with the graphics, but when I compare them today with this 3DO version, it's night and day. Like it's quite amazing. Even with the 32X version, I didn't realize how much better the 32X version was over the Genesis version. I don't give that add-on enough credit, I guess.
Yeah,
but
the Genesis version of
MK2.
Yeah, the Genesis version of MK2 has like those washed out colors and just something about it. Like it doesn't have the same impact that say the Genesis version of Mortal Kombat 1 had. I mean, you could argue that's probably more because of the blood. But I think even though the Genesis version of Mortal Kombat 1 is a significant downgrade, I still like that version.
It has one of the best soundtracks in the series.
The soundtrack is good, and like the gameplay still feels really good. But in 2, I don't know, the gameplay doesn't feel as good in that compared to say the arcade versions.
Yeah,
for me, it's the AI. The AI dominates. Like when I'm spinning up each version, each of the ports, and the first time I come across a Raiden, and he just decides to throw me back-to-back throws and just murders you. I mean, that's just he
immediately does the teleport move.
Yeah, it's just brutal. But that's the one thing. The credit to the 3DO one is the AI does not feel nearly as cheap as the Genesis or even the arcade version do. So I think the AI is not arcade accurate. But that's probably for the best because the arcade AI was really awful.
I mean, the AI feels like a work in progress as well.
Oh yeah, that was the thing I noticed right away. Like it wasn't a problem once I got used to it, but because I'm used to like how the other games play, like the AI threw me off because they do not follow the same patterns that any other version does, and it's kind of like you can tell. Obviously, it's probably going to be improved in the future. But when I was playing it, I was like, okay.
Like there are still moments where some of the characters feel cheap. Like I think at one point I was fighting Melina and she was like spamming the roll and doing all this stuff that just, to me, it felt kind of cheap, but she was like the worst one. Everyone else really wasn't terribly bad, but I think it was more of just me kind of figuring it out because the control in this, I don't know if it was my controller or not, but it didn't feel as responsive as I would want it to be. But I don't know if that was necessarily like my controller not interacting with it properly or whatever.
I think it has to do with the slower frame rate because the game is on the slower side.
Yeah, I feel like that would make sense as well because there were certain things I was trying to do and it feels like it wasn't being as responsive as I would want it to be. But even still, I was able to clear the whole thing and beat Shao Kahn. So you can beat the whole thing. And I noticed some of the later fights when I was doing it, it felt like they were getting kind of easier. Like there were certain fights that I like didn't struggle with at all. Like there's a certain point in the middle where I was like dying a bunch and restarting, which thankfully it puts you in a free play, so you can just keep doing it over and over again.
Right.
But like once you cross like the halfway point, like the battles I didn't really struggle with at all. Like I struggle with Kintaro because it could be, I don't know if it's a bug or not, but like with Kintaro, especially in this version, when he does the teleport slam, like you can't get out of it. Like once he does it, you're stuck and you can't evade it at all.
That was
I don't know if
brutal in
that's
the arcade too. The hitbox is
Yeah.
always wonky with that. And I
yeah,
always
but
felt
you
like
can
that
get
would
out
be
of
you.
it.
Yeah.
But you can get out of it. You have to be lucky, but you can.
Okay.
Did you guys
Is
have
there
any
endings?
crash?
Did they do the ending screens at all?
Yeah.
Or it's probably
Yeah.
work in progress. Yeah.
No,
Okay.
the ending screens were there. I wish
think-
they didn't zoom by because I was trying to read them and
Yeah.
they kind of zoomed by a little too fast. So that could be something to potentially fix. But
Did,
yeah, but I played through the whole thing with Sub-Zero. So
You guys have any crashes when you played, or
nope,
I didn't
no
either.
crashes
No.
at all.
No crashes, but I also like Sub-Zero, and I did when he does his ground freeze attack. I found sometimes the enemy when they hit that freeze, the back and forth of the free fall was a bit weird. It felt a little buggy.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
And
That's-
I could not get the slide move to work.
yes,
I couldn't get it, and I looked up like how to do it, because I was always used to like back, low kick, high kick, because that's what I'm used to. But that's like specific to like the Sega versions, and so I looked up like the arcade version, and I couldn't get it to work. But it's like hold back, left punch, low kick, and block, or something
I
like
think the
that.
block
And
timing is a bit different because I struggled with it as well. So it's definitely different
Yeah.
from other versions.
The physics were
Mhm.
definitely off. But
yeah,
I'll chalk that down to they clearly put all their effort into the graphics right away, which getting
Right.
everything running, which
this definitely feels like they're trying to get it to where it's playable and you can play the whole thing through, and you can. And probably now they're going to be like, okay, what are the little extra things we can add? Because not having the fatalities, it's fine that it's not there because that's probably a lot of extra work to get those like specific animations to work and get the timing down for the button combinations and the distances and everything. I'm just glad it wasn't me fucking up because I was like, why can't I get this goddamn ice grenade? Why can't I do it? And
I tried it like
and
a
then
few
seeing that, I'm
times, and
like,
I had
oh,
to-
that explains it.
I tried it a few times and had to look it up, and I was like, oh, okay, they're just not here.
Yeah, I'm glad it wasn't just me getting worse at the game.
What do you guys think of the music?
That's what the surprising thing for me is how every port of MK2 I played today sounds completely different. Like nothing like the arcade.
Yeah,
The arcade still does it best with the soundtrack. I was hoping to hear a bit better sound quality from a 3DO version. It's not bad. It's probably the best out of the other ports for home for sure. But I found some of the sound effects I think are clipping. They feel a little too loud or a little bit off. But I'm sure he'll fix that.
It sounds like he was like taking samples directly from the arcade version and trying to convert them to say like how the 3DO like works with like the sound chip or whatever.
Yeah, I think we were to me, like I found the soundtrack, it was fine but a little underwhelming, and to me I think that was mostly just because we played Street Fighter 2. The Street Fighter 2 soundtrack is just so extra for no reason.
It's banging.
It's
fucking like, banging. It's so good.
It's like arguably
CD quality or
it's they redid everything just for 3DO, and it is so epic.
Really?
Oh yeah,
there's quite a few 3DO ports that redo the soundtracks, and they're like really fucking good. Like the Doom one, like the best thing about it is the redone soundtrack.
Until we found out about the composer, and then it
yeah. But hey, you can download those files, you can pirate those files and listen to them.
True.
And be like, these are kind of dope. These are kind of fucking dope.
I like
just
the
wish
story
he wasn't a piece of shit.
Yeah, I mean, I do. I liked before we found out about him. I liked the idea that it was just his church band. Then they were just doing it in a garage because that entire game's development is hilarious.
I mean, what's more holy than destroying demons? Okay, I'm just saying
that they do good covers, but
they are good covers. They're fun.
Yeah, the Street Fighter 2 soundtrack though, like that's one I recommend looking up because it's like holy crap, it's so good.
Yeah,
and I think that's what I was expecting with this one. I thought the music would be the highlight for me, and it turns out it was more the graphics. I think I was more impressed with in this one. Again, not that it's bad, especially when I compared the 3DO soundtrack to like honestly, even the Genesis. I love Genesis sound, but I found the Genesis music was awful. So
yeah, it's
nice
not the best.
MK1
especially when it's like
much better soundtrack.
MK1 is a lot better on the Genesis.
And even like MK3 and Ultimate Mortal Kombat 3's Genesis soundtracks are pretty solid, and like what they're able to get out of that sound chip for those more like later games are like pretty good, like pretty close to the arcade versions. So yeah, MK2 is just kind of that weird in the middle.
My guess is the team doesn't have like a sound team.
Oh, doubt it.
to make their own reinterpretations, so they kind of have to deal with. They probably have to work with what they got, and I mean, who
Is it
knows?
the
Maybe
one
in the
guy who did this?
so it's unclear on their YouTube. I'm assuming it's multiple people, but I don't really know.
Well, there are credits. So if you beat the whole game, you beat Shao
Okay.
Kahn, you do get specific credits.
I skipped those, so that's on me.
I mean, I looked at them, and I think there was like 2 or 3 people who were doing like the hard work, and then they
Okay.
thanked a bunch of like people who helped like test it and do like some QA stuff for them. So, but yeah, you can tell it's like maybe no more than 2 or 3 people working on this thing at once.
Yeah, it's still more
So-
than Biofury, because I'm pretty sure Biofury was just one dude.
Yeah, just one dude, but it was pretty impressive what that one dude was able to create.
Shout out to Retro Love Letter. He's actually working on a 3D engine for the thing right now, and it's kind of
Oh
cool.
yeah, that'd be cool.
Yeah, other than that though, like I liked it. Like I was like shocked how good this port felt, especially just like obviously like most of my, if I'm playing MK2 and it's not the arcade version, it's probably this version just because it's the only version I own technically, but
Right.
it's also, this was the best port for a while, weirdly enough. But this was surprising, especially considering just how even the for the, because when I think beta, I usually think like good groundwork, but like a lot less polished. This feels super polished for a beta, which I kind of found really interesting.
It still has quite a bit of work to go, but I think for where they are sitting right now, it is pretty solid. And my guess is they probably did like a 3DO port for it just because it feels right. That's like, this is a game that should have been on 3DO.
It makes sense considering the time
yeah.
frame.
Yeah, like none of the other Mortal Kombats on 3DO make sense except this one. I have no idea why.
Yeah, one would be too dated, and Ultimate Mortal Kombat 3 is kind of just hard to do in general.
Yeah, later, I think that would be a little too complex for it. I don't know, because there's quite a bit going on in that game. But yeah, Mortal Kombat 2 just kind of fits the vibe of the 3DO.
Well, especially when you look at the other fighters on 3DO, like we had obviously Way of the Warrior, everyone knows about, but then there was of course Super Street Fighter 2 Turbo, like the best version of that game for years.
Samurai Showdown,
Samurai
really
Showdown,
of that.
a very good version of that, made by Crystal Dynamics. Still weird, but
kind
of cool.
Balls 3D.
Really?
Oh yeah, Balls.
Dynamics? Okay.
Yeah, Crystal did the port for some reason because, well, Crystal
they needed something to do.
Crystal was one of the most prolific developers on 3DO early on. I think we've actually covered all of their games now at this point.
Yeah. Right.
And we did our whole little retrospective episode on them as well. So y'all can go listen to that if you haven't.
But
it
other
definitely fits because like MK2 was ported to damn well everything, right? I mean, it had Game Boy, Game Gear ports, which real rough, Master System ports. Like it was on every system of the day. So it is on
Genesis, Super Nintendo. It was on the Amiga.
Yeah, DOS
got a PC
as well,
and Saturn and PlayStation. Yeah.
No Jaguar port, but that doesn't surprise me that much because
surprises me. I'm like, this feels like a Jaguar port too.
What's funny is
controller and everything.
When I think of the
port.
When I think of Jaguar and Mortal Kombat clones, I think of Kasumi Ninja. So
the Scotsman.
So just a little tangent. Kasumi Ninja, that game's rough in a lot of ways. It's not the worst thing ever, but my God,
it's pretty bad though.
No, it is pretty bad.
Let's not get ourselves here.
I've played worse, but I will say
true. I've played Way of the Warrior.
The menus in that game are the dumbest menus I've ever seen. Because why?
Yeah, that weird like first person 3D museum thing where you select your character. It's like, what is wrong with you people? Like,
you don't just select your character; you also select your stages. And guess what? The stages aren't colored on the screen, so you kind of just have to guess. And it's like, then you click on it, and it's like, enter the combat zone, and then there you go.
They really thought they were doing something. They really did.
There's a reason why people only remember the Scotsman.
There's a reason the team that developed this does not have a Wikipedia article.
Yes.
Was Tattoo Warriors on the 3DO, or was that Sega CD?
That's a good question.
I don't know.
I know that's the bad one I remember. That's the Mortal Kombat ripoff, they say. I remember the most.
Well, there's one more 3DO fighter that we have to cover. Our friend of the show, Casey, keeps bringing it up because it's one of the worst fighters, I guess, on the system. I forget the name of it right now. It's on the list. It's on the list. I'll have to recheck.
Hold on. Crap.
He mentioned it in the episode. That's why I always think about it.
Shadow War of Succession?
Yeah, I think that's the one.
Okay. Yeah. I've never heard of that, so that'll be fun.
Well, I remember because when you said you hated Way of the Warrior, he joked about that one, how it's worse. So.
Like how it's worse. I'm like, oh boy. Oh boy.
It's honestly though, this aside from this being just an amazing port of Mortal Kombat 2, this just brings me so much excitement for the future of like 3DO Homebrew. Because I'm just curious what else people can bring to this system. Like, it's interesting how they can take this dated hardware and do like wizardry with it now that they have unlimited time and resources.
Yeah, I think 3DO might be entering its era that the Jaguar did for a while, where like people were doing a bunch of homebrew stuff for it. I think this might be the next couple years. It may be the 3DO's like renaissance for all this weird kind of homebrew shit that people are doing with it.
It helps too that the 3DO is a relatively non-complex system for the time. Like it's very off-the-shelf parts, kind of. I think it used pretty basic ARM processors and stuff, and I mean it's a powerful system for the time, but it's not like it doesn't have stupid Jaguar hardware where it's like Tom and Jerry in the corner and oh, there's a Genesis chip in here, just use that instead.
Yeah, people were able to figure that out to a certain degree.
With time, it's like the Saturn, how people are discovering the Saturn is actually extremely powerful, but it was just a complicated mess.
Yeah, it's kind of the same with Jag, where I think even in homebrew, people really haven't been able to realize the full potential of what the Jag could have been.
Well, I know this
takes a few years to figure out, right? Like I'm a big fan of Atari 2600 homebrew, and like there's a fantastic port of Pac-Man now, or a recreation of Pac-Man on the 2600.
Yeah, I've seen that.
When you have years of dev time to figure out the kinks of the system, you can do anything, right? So it's
and
like
you're not
3DO now.
rushing it out in 3 minutes to make a fail.
Right.
Yeah, you could port Halo to the 2600.
I've played that. It's
pretty. That's a cool game. Yeah. Or when last time we were doing Myst, I found somebody ported Myst to the Atari 2600.
Of course they did.
And it's kind of dope. There's something really cool about it. So it's definitely worth looking into. Just type in like Myst 2600 or whatever, and you'll find it.
Yeah, I am looking forward though to once this does get finished. I'd like to see the finished product, and also kind of like to see a physical release. I don't know if they could legally get away with that, but
yeah, probably not, because you know
the rights to 3DO.
Well, it's not so much that you can make
Mortal
3DO
Kombat.
games. It's more midway.
Yes.
It's more
Warner Brothers.
Warner Brothers would show up and be like, "What are you trying to do with my product, sir?"
Yeah, even though they don't.
Dare you make a tax write-off for us?
Yeah, I know, right?
Yeah, even though they don't really do anything with Mortal Kombat outside of putting out the new ones every couple years, which
I'm
is
sure
fine. But like
Sub-Zero to Multiverses, something.
But that's getting shut down again, isn't it?
Yes, again, it's being shut down. Yeah, it's being
delisted,
so
it's just I would like if Warner Brothers did like a classic Mortal Kombat collection, where it's like you have 1, 2, 3, Ultimate 3 trilogy. You know, just like put those out again. Like, why not?
Did you ever play MK9?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I love
the 360 one.
I mean, graphic. Yeah, like the fan service aside, I really love that because it's a retelling of the first 3 Mortal Kombat games. And I'm also heavy into the Mortal Kombat lore. I love that.
Oh, I love that lore as well. Yeah. It's so good.
It also just
fascinating to me.
Yeah. MK9 just plays so because they dropped the 3D and they went just back to classic 2D.
Yeah, but I liked the 3D era though.
I did too, but it got really.
Not 4, not 4, but like Deadly Alliance, Deception, Armageddon. I love those games. I played the shit out of Deception. Played the shit out of it.
Like, aside from being neutered in terms of violence, MKDC played amazingly.
Yeah, I remember when that came out, everyone was pissed about how there was no blood in it and there was no gore and everything.
It's because DC got cold feet.
DC, yeah.
Yeah, but if you go back, if you go back and play it, it's like it's not bad.
Oh no, gameplay
actually like it's a pretty solid fighter.
It was also the game that introduced the idea of like how the stories have been done in the games pretty much go since then, because it was the first one that did that whole chapter by chapter thing that pretty much all fighters do now.
And it led to NetherRealm making the Injustice games, which people love.
like NetherRealm has pretty much set the gold standard for story mode in fighting games, right? Like it's
Absolutely.
it's at the point now where, I mean, Tekken has some story bits, but even Street Fighter 6 has the most story I think it's ever had, but it's nowhere near what NetherRealm's been doing. I love playing Mortal Kombat again. I don't even play them online. I don't even play multiplayer with other folks. I just play for the story. I like the characters, I like the world, and I like the story.
Yeah,
It's
it's
neat
like
they've done that.
and it's like a 4 or 5 hour like movie that you occasionally play, and it's great.
Yeah, I've seen people who
they're very
edit
well
out
made.
they edit out the fights and just make it a straight up movie, and it's like it's actually an entertaining movie to watch. If
Yeah,
you just watch the cutscenes
because like they're not treating it like super seriously. They're not necessarily like tongue in cheek, but it's like it's just kind of like turn your brain off and have some fun with it. You know what I mean?
I love the start of 9 with Johnny Cage just like, wow, these special effects are great. Who's your agent?
yeah.
Meanwhile, he's
Love all
throwing
that stuff.
green. Meanwhile, he's throwing green shit out of his hands. He's like, I'm like, Johnny, come on. And then they write that into the plot in 10. Like they make that a plot.
Yeah, of course they do.
Which is great.
Yeah, it's really like one of the only series that I play for the story. Like I could care less. Like Tekken and Street Fighter, they might be better fighting games, and there's probably a lot of reasons for that. But I never really got into those series. Whereas like Mortal Kombat, I always really liked. Like yeah, it's much more simple of a fighting game to like the big boys, but I like that, and I've always found like the lore and like the Chinese mythology type of vibe and all that just super fascinating to me.
MK Mythologies, as much as that game is horrendous, I love those cutscenes so much.
Yeah,
cutscenes are worth watching.
Yeah, the story's kind of interesting too. It's just that game sucks shit. Absolute shit.
It's still better than Special Forces.
That ain't saying much though. But bring back Shaolin Monks, god damn it. Bring it back. I want it back so bad.
My favorite part about Shaolin Monks is whenever you do like Scorpions Get Over Here, he adds bitch to the end of it for no reason.
Yeah, I love that. And I liked a lot of the cool things they did in Shaolin Monks, where it's you would visit like the famous backgrounds from Mortal Kombat 1 or 2. And they're like, oh, it's in 3D and it's like a beat 'em up. So there's like new types of like interaction, and like, oh, you see the creatures who are like in the eyes with Goro's Pit in 1 and all that kind of stuff I thought it was really cool.
Oh, I just thought
about really weird respect for the lore in MK, like, and especially NetherRealm, I think they lean into that as well. Like they know what they're basing their games on, they know what they've built, and they definitely stay true to it, even if it is a mix of Chinese mythology, mysticism, and robot ninjas. Just cause, right? Like
that's awesome. It's fucking great, dude.
Great. Yeah.
Then the fact that they incorporate all their weird glitches into the lore, like Armac and like Noob Saibot and all that stuff, they just kind of made it lore.
Like Jade and Melina and all these characters, like they only exist because they were urban legends. And Ed Boon was just like, fuck it, put them in the game. And that I think helps Mortal Kombat as well, is that Ed Boon has been like the head of it the entire time. So I think that helps. And a lot of like guys like John Vogel and Steve Barron and all these other guys who have been there from very early on, still working the team. Dan Forden, Sal Vita, like all those Midway guys.
I did not actually check this. Did any of you guys get a Toasty?
Yes.
Okay, so
but it's not Dan Forden.
Damn.
Something else, right?
Who do you think it is? Take a guess. Come on, it's 3DO.
Is it Trip Hawkins?
It is Trip Hawkins.
Okay, you know what? That's fine. I'm actually okay with that now.
I love it.
I didn't get a Toasty, so I didn't even think about it, and I was like,
yeah, I got 2 Toasties in the same round.
So what was your reaction when you saw Trip Hawkins?
Well, I was focused on winning the round, but when it was done, I was like, oh, that was fucking Trip Hawkins. Hell yeah. I love it. It gives it that kind of fan game feel to it, you know.
Okay, that's fun.
That I appreciate.
I enjoy that now.
Yeah. So
I
hope Ed Boon hears about this and is able to like and says like, hey, this is cool. That'd be great.
So in the first game, I know when you had the Toasty, you did a certain thing on certain stages. You got a hidden fight, and I think the second game had that as well. Is that in this yet, or has he mentioned anything about the hidden fights?
That's probably not. I mean, you do fight. I fought Jade. But Jade was just like the little question mark when you play the arcade mode. Like she's just there. You don't have to do any of the specific stuff. Like say in MK1 where you had to do the very specific thing on the pit to fight Reptile. So
right, that's what it was. Reptile. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Other thoughts before we wrap this up, or
It's really cool. Y'all should go download it and play it. And shouts out to 3DO HD if by any chance they happen to listen to this. Good stuff, you know.
Hmm.
If you want to hear more about bugs, you can let me know. You know, because there were some weird things I noticed with like certain hit detections and you know little things that were like a little off, but you know it didn't ruin the experience overall. It's just that yeah, it still needs it needs some more proper QA, I guess. Best thing I could say.
yeah. I find it amazing that the homebrew community it can do shit like this. Like it is just so cool like, seeing it nowadays. And in all honesty, I'm gonna put a link in the description to 3DO HD's channel so you can check out any of the progress he's done. Um, yeah, I'm looking forward to the completed version and anything else they want to put out.
Yeah, let us know. We'll promote it on the show too.
Oh yeah.
Why not?
So before we wrap up, we have to do it for every episode. Even though it's a beta, I still think it's worth doing. Is it a must play, an okay, or a stay away?
I think I'm gonna say must play.
I'm gonna say so as well. Like it surprised me how good it was.
Yeah, I'm
Jake?
strongly impressed by this game. Like honestly, homebrew, like you said, Bill, is always surprising what people can do with the time and the resources these days. It makes me also look at the 3DO in a kinder light. I kind of wish I gave the system more attention than I do today, especially in a world where emulation's at everybody's fingertips and it's so easy to get into these systems. I don't think enough people are looking at 3DO. I think that people need to kind of give a second look to the system and what's possible on it. Not just the old games, but what people are able to do with it today is really interesting stuff.
And that's that's honestly been my goal when I started this podcast was just to get the 3DO out there and give people a way to learn about it. Because the funnest part about this show has just been inviting people who know nothing about the 3DO and just kind of educating and like basically creating new 3DO fans, as I say, because it's been amazing the turnaround on the system. Like people actually know what it is now, and it's kind of cool.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah, but other than that, Jake, did you want to shout out your podcast?
Sure, I'll shill my podcast. Absolutely, that's why I'm here.
Advertising.
You can. I'm part of a podcast. 5 folks over at Press B to Cancel. You can find us at pressbtocancel.com or on any of your audio podcast apps. You can also find us on YouTube. We appreciate the free follows whenever possible as we try and grow our podcast. Much like you guys, we're a retro game podcast. We've been going 4 years now, I think almost 5. I know we took a break at some point early on, but we have been podcasting for quite a long time. And it's we recently joined the SuperPod Network, I think, along with you guys. Mm-hmm. It's been a great experience working with Aaron and all you guys. Has been fantastic. A lot of great shows. So glad to be part of it.
Hell yeah. And yeah, once again, though, guys, thank you for joining us on the 3DO Experience. You can find the 3DO Experience on all the major podcasting platforms, particularly Apple Podcast and Spotify. And be sure to check us out over on the SuperPod Network. That is superpodnetwork.com, an awesome site. You can find all sorts of podcasts, blogs, shows, all sorts of cool things. And you can check out all the other amazing shows there, like SuperPod Saga, Super Ghost Radio, Retro Rehab, Tommy's Video Game Ride Along, A Novel Console, Bar Silence, Fine Time, the Elder Trolls Gaming Podcast, Remember 64, Gaming Together, Friday Night Gamecast, Gaming and Collecting, the 3DO Experience, Geek Addicts, the Retro Wildlands, Press B to Cancel, the Pre-Order Bonus Podcast, Retro Mo Reviews, and of course, because Tommy can't help himself, we got we've got Tommy's new show, Tommy and Grant Go Podcasting.
It's not in the car. It's not the same. I missed the car cast.
I'm giving him shit about it.
He sounds a lot like that guy that used to be on SuperPod Saga. I'm just saying.
Yeah, that AI. Whatever happened to that?
Yeah.
But anyways, guys, once again, thank you for joining us. We will see you all next time.
Bye-bye.